How many Kerry O'Shea Gorgones are there here today live on the show? You're muted because you were being very helpful to yourself.
Oh, do you ever think that people who host StreamYard shows that they don't realize that when they're backstage, you can see them but not hear them?
Oh, I don't know.
I think that sometimes. Because would you know? It's so unusual when you host your own StreamYard show to go in as a guest on someone else's. And then I think, why can't I see everything? Can they see me? Like I forget sometimes. Anyway, so there's just the one.
Because we don't do guests anymore. I've been finding out.
We do. Shut up. Yes, we do. We have Emily Best, the founder and CEO of Atlanta-based Seed&Spark, a crowdfunding platform that makes entertainment more diverse, inclusive, and connected. And she's had an incredible journey getting there. She actually spent 17 years in the restaurant business and has a degree in something totally else. So it's been a very interesting journey so far. And she's got some new things she's working on.
Yeah, some other new projects too. So we've got a lot to cover with Emily Best.
Hi everyone, Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, welcoming you to The Backpack Show. Your hosts, Chris Brogan, Kerry Gorgone, Boom Shakalaka.
Backpack Show.
So hello to your mom.
Hi, my mom.
And hello to Chloe, who sent me a care package that had so many delicious things in it. There's tea, like a couple different kinds of tea, and a bunch of biscuits, and some tablet that I have been eating a lot of that I probably should stop.
Tablet should be illegal. Hey, Nikki.
Hello.
Good to see you. Welcome on to our little show. Hi, Leslie. How are you? Oh, I have to tell Leslie sometime about my savory pancakes that I made.
Oh, God. Some other time. We need to talk to Emily.
Because I don't have maple syrup. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Let's grab our... oh, and hey, look who's here. Ginny's here. Hi, Ginny.
Hey.
So we'll grab Emily. Hey, Emily Best. How the heck are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you all?
Oh, best ever. Can't tell you live in...
See what you did there?
Other half of the U.S.
So, Emily, you should have hosted the shows I used to do for AppFire that were called the best shows. Everything was the best project portfolio management show by AppFire, the best. So it would have made sense for you to host it.
Hosted by Emily Best would have been a bonus.
Yeah. When we bring it back.
Talk to us a little bit about this business here. We plant the seed, we set off a spark. What is this, and why did you have to do that?
Seed&Spark is a crowdfunding platform for stories that matter. We started almost 11 years ago at a very special time in the history of, I like to call it creator economy 1.0, right? Where crowdfunding as a practice had arisen out of the ashes of the 2007-2008 financial crisis. Canon, the camera company, had put a full frame sensor in the 5D camera, making recording high quality digital cinema like available to everyone overnight. Broadband had gotten wide enough that, we could distribute films and not just music. And social media was like taking off, and it was on the open social graph. You guys remember the open social graph? I really miss it. Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn is the last bastion. It's become my favorite platform because it's still on the open social graph. But those four conditions converged, and creators were looking around being like, did they just give us everything we needed to succeed? And Kickstarter and Indiegogo had launched into the market. But the truth was the people who were really benefiting from crowdfunding were people at that time who already came from pretty well-resourced communities, and the technology gap was much wider back then than it is today, the broadband gap, all of those things. And we really entered into the market to provide a place that could make it possible for people from anywhere and any background to succeed with these new technologies. And it was born out of a movie that I was trying to make with a bunch of women friends of mine, because we didn't like the way women were represented on screen. And this was back before anybody was really talking in the national news media about representation in Hollywood. So we were going around trying to pursue the traditional paths for financing. And we would hear really helpful things like, well, if you could put some lesbian erotica in it, we could sell it. But they didn't mean lesbian erotica for lesbians. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It was really that insulting. And we were like,
they meant Bound from, Jennifer Tilly. Yeah. And yes. they didn't mean what you meant.
Exactly. And so I think we realized that if we wanted to make something that told the story a different way, we were really going to have to go it our own way. And we ended up building a little WordPress website with a wedding registry for our movie. So we literally listed the individual items we needed, the bug spray and the sunscreen and the camera rentals and the gear and the coffee. And we sent it to everybody we know. No, wait, I'm going to date myself here. We used the Facebook note function. Do you remember back when Facebook had a Substack?
Wow.
And we sent it to everybody we knew. And like the network effect really worked at that time. And people really liked being able to like pick something that was relevant to them. Like I remember somebody's aunt who was a nurse sent us our first aid kit, right? And we found a local coffee shop that actually donated all of the coffee. I mean, really like 60 pounds of coffee. And I remember like, it wasn't really delicious coffee, but it just, we were like, we can't look a gift horse in the mouth. And I think what was really spectacular about that, oh, thanks, Dean. I do. I love a plant, and my kids keep adding, they just
love it
to the background. Yeah, so we put out this wedding registry, and we needed to raise $20,000 to like complete the financing for the film, and we raised $23,000 in cash, but like probably $250,000 in loans and gifts. Because once people saw that we were willing to accept stuff, they started offering us stuff we hadn't even thought of, and locations and like goods and services. And so it just completely changed the game for us. And so we made that movie, and 450 people supported that campaign. And then the sales agents and distributors who had been sort of turning us away, all of a sudden were interested in writing us offers. And then I saw the offers that they were writing, and I was like, hold on, is this like your standard offer, or do you hate us? Because it was just like they would make money and we would make no money.
Sure.
And they're like, no, this is what the offers look like. And I was like, sorry, is this the business of independent film? Because it's starting to feel like dependent film, and I don't really like this feeling. And now we had an audience of 450 people who were showing up at every screening and bringing their friends, and we have pictures of like lines around the block. And to be honest, we didn't make a great film. We made like a very sweet first film. It's very much a first film, but it had a lot of heart, and people really responded to it, especially the people who had participated in its making. And so,
so it reminds me, I feel like if you don't follow Cindy Gallup, you ought to. We had her on the show.
I know Cindy.
Okay, good. Yes, I was going to say, because she's all about funding for women and women-owned businesses.
Yep. So basically, after that, I started getting contacted by creators all over the country and asking us how we did it. And I was like, I don't know, but I'll reverse engineer it to the best of my ability. and Seed&Spark was born.
Amazing. And that movie you're saying was just kind of like your first attempt. So I imagine since then you've managed to put out a lot of better stuff.
Well, I mean, sure, but like I now, when I launched Seed&Spark, it was I had a slate of films that I wanted to make, but my advisors and investors were like, you're going to have to pick, like you're going to be a filmmaker or you're going to run this company. And so we launched Seed&Spark, and since then over 4,000 projects have funded. We just topped, I think, 51 million in funding. And so those aren't I have crowdfunded one project on there since then, but they're all, they feel like my babies, but I have nothing to do with them beyond they're on the platform. And because we only raised a little tiny piddly bit of money when we launched, we had to come up with really creative ways to reach our audience. And so we built a crowdfunding workshop called Crowdfunding to Build Independence, and we just taught it to literally anybody who would have us. And that's what led us to having one of the most demographically and geographically diverse pipelines of creators that I think is really what sets us apart.
Emily, in the process of this, I mean, there is a pivot there, right? I want to make a film. I want to figure out how to do this. Everyone comes rushing in and says, oh, wait a minute, how do you do that? And you go, oh, maybe there's some, magic in this old silk hat.
Yep.
But in that process, because you sort of landed on it in a very organic way, if you had to do it all over again, how would you start this? What would you do to launch Seed&Spark today, knowing all the misery and mistakes you made to get here now?
I don't think there's any way I would do it. Like, I mean, first of all,
crazy, right?
Yeah. The conditions had to be what they were back then to make it make sense to launch Seed&Spark, which at the time was a crowdfunding platform with a streaming platform built in, right? Like a pay-per-view streaming platform built in, because we were trying to solve not just for the audience building, but then serving to the audience and getting paid a fair wage, which has always been very interesting to us from the start. And the conditions of the market back then were that we believed in the promise of like the great democratization of content. And that simply has not come to pass. In fact, I would say we've seen a greater consolidation in the creator space than ever before. And I believe we've actually been on a crash course with this like big labor movement, for the past decade, largely because of the way Hollywood adopted technology. And so, today I would say it would be nearly impossible to start Seed&Spark. I think we got in early and we became, a trusted part of the community because we built alongside them. I mean, almost everybody who's worked at Seed&Spark at one time or another has run a campaign, been part of a campaign, launched a film. I did a web series on Seed&Spark called Fuck Yes, which are digital shorts about sexual consent. Kerry, they are very good and they've been viewed tens of millions of times.
I'm not judging you. I haven't made anything in like 15 years. So.
Those are legit good. Our COO, April, made a really wonderful film called After the Game about high school and collegiate athletes. And all of us are very invested in being a part of the community as well. But it's interesting, Chris, you asked that question. I'm like, I just don't actually think you could get this off the ground today because everybody would be trying to force you to be an NFT platform. They would try to force you to be, like a crypto or it happened to me throughout the years. Like, it's funny to sort of have been doing this long enough to see the cycles, and the cycles are getting shorter, right? Like, so 7 years ago, everybody was like, well, what are you going to do in equity crowdfunding? No, sorry. Like 2 years after we launched, everybody's like, well, what are you doing in equity crowdfunding? And I was like, equity crowdfunding is a terrible prospect for 99% of independent films. Because right now, rewards-based crowdfunding means that if you make your film and you deliver the rewards, your audiences are super happy. If you add equity into it, now they also want a financial return, which 99% of films can't make, right? Because the business is effed.
You're right, though. It's always a new thing. It's becoming a little dizzying to watch it happen.
It was equity. Why aren't you doing equity crowdfunding? Then it was like, why aren't you doing blockchain? And then 3 years later, it was like, why aren't you doing NFTs? I was like, that's just blockchain. Like, we're just calling it something different. But like, what? We're back here again?
Yeah, but they want to sell more courses. And
and then why aren't you doing equity crowdfunding? And I was like, the conditions of the film business have not changed. And to be honest, and I have nothing but love for Kickstarter, but when they made an announcement that they were going to do some like blockchain-based, NFT-based stuff, we had a flood of creators rushing at us being like, you're not going to do that to us, are you? Because creators are already so overwhelmed with all of the things they have to do to just make their stuff, that to add another layer, a sort of like a technological interface between them and their audiences, it's too dizzying. So,
but your degree is in anthropology. So you get your degree in anthropology and then you go to study to become a jazz singer in Barcelona. Like, what's going on? Then the restaurants, and then eventually film. What happened? What's going on?
Great question. Let's see. I studied abroad in Barcelona my junior year of college, and I started taking some music lessons there. And my senior year, I came back and I wrote my thesis in anthropology. And at that time, I see this younger generation of kids who've studied anthropology, and it seems like the anthropological criticism has come a long way in the last 20 years. This was 20 years ago, right? Has come a long way in the last 20 years. But yes, Cody, agree. At the time, I remember like being in a department that was still very much around cultural relativism, which is this concept that like you can't evaluate another culture from your culture's values. That can be a very valuable perspective, like don't bring your colonial bullshit to this place. But it can also, I think, be it can be an academic way to squash activism, right? So I remember reading this article, sorry to take it here, about female genital mutilation, and the anthropologist was basically like, well, we can't view that through the lens of our Western. And I was like, no, bitch, no, sorry. Here's where I draw the line. And I remember going into my thesis defense, and I like defended my thesis, whatever. And they were like, well, what do you think about what are your next steps here? And I was like, I don't see the activism in this that feels like aligned for me. And it was 2001. And the first thing that happened my senior year of college was that the Twin Towers fell and the world blew up. And I was like, what, I'm going to graduate?
Emily, we like to save the Twin Towers and genital mutilation for like after lunch, usually.
You asked me what happened, okay? It's a story of love and intrigue. And
a lot of terms.
A lot of really depressing things.
If you're just tuning into the Backpack Show, we're talking to Emily Besto, owner and founder of Seed&Spark, who, after genital mutilation and the two towers falling.
Not her own.
It wasn't my own. All I'm saying is that, like, college for me was a place where I was like, the world is not what I thought it was. I need to figure out how to go be more of a part of it. And I need to get out of America because I think this whole American exceptionalism thing might be a lie. And so I left and I moved back to Barcelona. I mean, part of it is like, I got my heart terribly broken. My like college boyfriend broke up with me and I was, you know, yes, exactly.
Love, intrigue, and two towers.
Write it, Cody. They will buy it. They need a new Christmas special anyway. You know, I got my heart broken and I was like, what's keeping me here? And I convinced another friend of mine, also named Emily, to move to Barcelona with me. And I enrolled in the jazz school, the Taller de Músics. And that
did people call you the Emilys? Because in my head, I'm building this all up now.
Yes, they did.
We took Barcelona by storm.
And then the two of us started dating men named Xavi, both of us, and the four of us moved in together. So we became the Emilys and the Xavis, which was pretty fun. And both Xavi's best friends were named Xavi. It was very exciting. Somebody would be like, hi, Xavi.
How does this not become the movie, Emily?
Oh, I mean, we could get into the fact that like I ended up becoming a tour guide for English bachelor parties and becoming like an unwitting pawn in the sex trade, which when I discovered it, I would then get out and move home.
You are just a lightning rod for terrible things.
It's been an exciting time. So I came home and got into the restaurant business for a while. And,
wait, what?
Yeah.
You were like, listen, Xavi and Xavi and Xavi and Xavi and Emily, I'm going back to get in the restaurant business.
Well, my Xavi became my first husband. We moved back to California. I helped get this bonkers floating building restaurant off the ground in Ileton, California. And I did that for a couple seasons. And then I started a process of going into restaurants and helping them like turn themselves around. So going into restaurants that were in the red and building like training programs and things that would.
Ooh, like Bar Rescue.
Yes. I didn't know I was doing Bar Rescue before Bar Rescue. No, in fact, I was the opposite. So usually it was like really asshole owners. And I would come in to the staff and be like, hey, how are you? Cody, can you please ghostwrite my biography?
Hey, Elizabeth.
I feel like that's the way to go. Buenos dias, Elizabeth.
Oh my gosh. Wow, so much to unpack. Brogan.
Right. There's like 190 questions now because that all just came out. What's the anchor in all this, Emily? Because there isn't like, if there's a thread to pull through all of this right now, it seems like a bit of a macrame. What do you got?
I think it is a macrame. Like I think what I really I like things to be fair, right? So like one of the through lines for me has always been a certain amount of activism and kind of looking for where the challenge is. And that was just as much true in restaurants of like, how do we make this work for everyone? Restaurants are pirate ships, right? It's a bunch of people with really conflicting priorities and like a captain being like, we just got to sail that way today, right? And I promise there's something at the end of. And so getting a bunch of people with conflicting priorities to work really well together. And I think that's kind of the cornerstone of any movement building, right? Is getting kind of strange bedfellows together. And so I think that's part of the through line. I think I've always really cared about how stories move people, and how art moves people. I mean, I did a bunch of years in theater in New York, and that's still my favorite way to reach and move people. I think the reason I didn't stay in theater in New York is I noticed it was mostly white-haired white people and other actors. And while those are very valuable audiences, I don't ever want them to stop going to theater. It just didn't quite have the reach that I needed. And that was part of why I started pursuing film. So I don't know. There's a few threads to tie together there, I guess.
So I don't. I have no good segue here. Didn't I used to have a thing for that? Hang on a minute.
You did. You had a little video.
I thought I had a little video for that, but it's not there anymore. Oh well.
And this question comes from inside the big yard at Folsom County Prison.
Right. Grew up.
Oh, near Folsom County Prison. In it. So the other site you decided to make because you weren't happy just crowdfunding independent lesbian films, you decided you'd make another thing called Film Forward. And in that process, as I'm pushing buttons at the same time we're talking, in that process, you decided you could show that stories were pretty important to training and the like. Want to talk a little bit about that project?
Yeah. So around 2018, our creators at Seed&Spark came to us and they said, we have a new problem. And what they identified was really the problem of the way technology had been adopted to Hollywood. They said, no matter how successful we are. So this film right here, crowdfunded on Seed&Spark, was nominated for an Academy Award and still had challenges reaching audiences the way that they really wanted to. And they said, even when we're wildly successful, we're picked up by a major distributor. We are marketed on social media. We are streamed on streaming platforms, and we are delivered like a heat-seeking missile to people who already look like us and already think like us. And that's not why we make work. We make work to change people's minds and challenge their worldview. And I realized they were asking us, okay, how do we deliver films at scale to audiences who don't identify as the audience for this work without using social media or streaming? And like my only answer at the time was, I guess we got to get out of the film business. Like, I don't know where you do that inside entertainment when everybody's going to subscription streaming. And a really smart advisor of ours said, did you know the workplace is the most diverse place most people are in their lives? And so we did a research project. We talked to hundreds and hundreds of corporate leaders for several months. And we learned a couple of really important things. The first is that nobody we spoke to likes corporate training videos or believes they are particularly effective.
What?
And the second is that the challenges they were trying to solve, innovation, belonging, resilience, retention, leadership, these are not like individual training challenges. These are collective sense-making challenges. How do we operate together as an organization? And they needed different tools. And we heard again and again that people were bringing in stories, they were using clips, they were trying to create some sort of shared codex, but they just didn't really have the tools for it. And so based on our research, and we were backed by like the incredible neuroscience of learning is that stories are 22 times stickier in your brain than tell and test methods. But there's also a lot that can be done in stories and reflection. And so we built Film Forward as a platform that applied the incredible quality of cinema already rocketing off of our platform with the neuroscience of learning. And we built...
So, love, intrigue, two towers, and sex trade. How to advance your soft skills to advance in corporate America. Cody, it can't be just soft skills. You need hard skills if you're going to make this entire title work. And Cody wins the internet today.
I agree. Yeah. So we built this mostly to serve what the creators wanted, which is how do you get this in front of people who will never otherwise see it? And we discovered, again, strange bedfellows in independent filmmakers and corporate learning and development professionals. And we realized we could each solve their problems. And our creators, on the smallest contracts we sell, make royalties that are 200 times what they could make on a streaming platform with their films. And we're getting 3 times the completion rates, 22 times the stickiness for the corporate learning and development professionals. So
Cody, don't. Waiting for Cody to add this title, stickiness and completion.
Yes,
but anyway, it's really only the beginning for us, because I think what we have developed is a pedagogy method that can turn exceptional short cinema from anywhere in the world into behavior change agents. And so corporate America is a great place to start, but it's by no means kind of like the end. It's like you could use this to teach about climate change, about media literacy, about sexual consent, about health equity and education. This could go in so many directions.
You could use your corporate training to fund your independent film ventures about those other things.
That's right.
Cody had to back over another contribution.
Well, Josh, we've hit a certain part of our show where we tend to look at our people who have communicated.
Oh, and here's our person of the day. Kaboom!
Yeah, who's that going to be? I am sorely tempted to put Dean in there, but Cody, you're our person of the day. That entitles you to 1 free apple. You just have to go to a store and buy yourself an apple and just eat it. Have a good time.
Well, no, I wash it first and bake it into a tartlet or make a nice crisp.
Oh, a tartlet. Oh, someone's been to the UK. Hey, we've come to the part of the show, Emily, where we ask every single guest who's ever been on here, Sister Anne Flanagan, Mistress Harley, and every single one of them, what goes in your backpack? This could be something physical, like a beautiful avocado. It could be something metaphorical, like dreams. Kerry, what's something physical you could add to a backpack?
Ooh, extra set of teeth. You just never know.
That's smart.
I think
TJ Cumberbund.
How about something you could add that's metaphorical?
Kindness. Burlesque performer Ariel Helvetica put kindness in the backpack. And I laughed in her face, but not because of her answer. It was unrelated.
So, Emily Best, what do you think should go into the backpack today?
In my backpack would go the group of women I call my coven. They're the group of women who provide the emotional support, the humor, the fortitude to persist through a very wild and winding road.
That's funny because it's very similar to the answer that made me laugh so hard that I laughed at poor Ariel Helvetica. We had Nikki Porche on from Buy From a Black Woman, and she said, I want to put Black women in my backpack. And I was like, pfft. And she realized the moment she said it, it sounded not okay. And yeah, we had a good laugh over that. I was like, oh, cool. She's like, I meant my network. We're like, we get it. And then we moved right on to Ariel Helvetica, who said kindness, and things just unraveled.
And Kerry laughed
I'm not
right
proud
in
of
her
it.
face and made her feel bad, Emily. So that's why she's forced to say kindness every time I ask for an example.
It's my penance.
So there you go. Well, I feel like we have a lot more stories that we have to write. I feel like, I might have even watched a few of these on the Hallmark Network. So I think that maybe when we have you back, we'll ask you a pretty important question, which is, I want to know about the plot hang about this particular detail.